We are in Santiago de Cuba today for this crucial clash in League A of the Concacaf Nations League. It's Cuba hosting Nicaragua in Group B here from Santiago de Cuba. We say hello and welcome to the Estadio Antonio Maceo in Santiago, Cuba. Sam Goldfarb here, bringing you all the action today in this huge clash right around the quarterfinal spots in Group B. You get your look at the weather today. It is a warm one, it is a humid one. There are potential storms in the area as well, so we will keep you posted on the status of this match. But as things stand, we are set to kick off at the prescribed time of 4 p.m. Eastern in a massive battle in Group B. You get your look at the table right now. Nicaragua currently in second after their victory at French Guiana on Friday. Meanwhile, Cuba managed to battle to a scoreless draw with Jamaica last week. The question is, can they start to produce more goals going forward? We will see who has the upper hand tonight. Well, for Cuba, under Uniales Castillo, it is an interesting scenario. It's the second consecutive year they are in League A, but goals have, well, been at quite the premium. Just one goal in their previous 9 League A matches, and it has been a struggle going forward, especially with a very young team by this nation's standards, an average age of just over 24 in last week's lineup. It's only gotten younger with some changes at the back line today. Now, defensively, they have been incredibly sound, a team that has kept clean sheet after clean sheet, including against a very strong Jamaica side. But again, in order to stay up in this group and to make a push for the quarterfinals, getting goals and wins is imperative. On the other side of things, a Nicaragua side that has finally cracked the precipice of League A under Marco Antonio Figueroa, a team that was dominant in League B for multiple years. There was a disqualification scandal that cost them safe passage a year ago. They managed to achieve promotion in the 23-24 edition, and they find themselves in the quarterfinal places after one match day with the victory at French Guiana on Friday. It sets the stage for what should be a huge clash between these two teams as both take the pitch here in Santiago, a 5,000-seat venue at the Estadio Antonio Maceo. Built in the 1900s, it is a small venue but an intimate one with just about 5,000 seats. We are just about set for the anthems for both teams. We will step aside briefly when we return. A look at the lineups for both squads here in Cuba.
Damas y caballeros, pedimos mantenerse de pie para escuchar el himno nacional de Cuba.
We welcome you back to the Estadio Antonio Maceo in Santiago, Cuba. just about set for kickoff between Cuba and Nicaragua in this crucial clash in Group B of League A of the 24-25 Concacaf Nations League. A pair of teams looking to solidify both their grasp on their position in this league in a year's time, as well as potentially making a quarterfinal push, neither side having ventured into that sector of the competition just yet. Well, both sides taking their respective photos. There's your look at Nicaragua, side in its first year of League A after achieving promotion last year. A Cuba team in its second consecutive League A campaign, its third in the 4 years it has participated in this competition as well. Well, it should make for an intriguing clash, a First Nations League battle between these two sides, and you get your look at Unielis Castillo's 11. It is one that's slightly altered from the scoreless draw at Jamaica. Junior Perez, of course, was sent off at the tail end of that match, so they've been forced into 3 changes. Of course, Michael Reyes leads the line, a man with 11 international goals to his name. That's good for tied for 10th all-time in Cuban national team history. They've also made a change between the sticks. Ismael Morgado making just his second start, the first of which came against this Nicaragua side in a friendly back in March. Here are your looks at the officials. Pierre-Luc Lauzer, the Canadian man, is the head official. Stefan Tanaka Freund, Luis Arfa, his assistants, and Randy Encarnacion, the Dominican fourth official. How about we get a look at the visiting side for Nicaragua, a side that currently occupies the second spot in Group B. It's a far more veteran and experienced bunch under Marco Antonio Figueroa. Keep your eye, of course, on Juan Barrera, the all-time leading goal scorer for Nicaragua. Josue Quijano as well, the wingback today, is also the all-time most cap player. And number 9 up front, Jaime Moreno, the 29-year-old in his prime, someone who has lit up the goal-scoring charts in the Finnish top flight during his time in Europe. It's a Nicaragua side that pulls a lot from its domestic league, a Cuba side that relies on a few more talents from abroad, but is not shy about pulling from their top flight as well. And we are just about set for kickoff. It is an incredibly young Cuba side, a veteran and experienced Nicaragua bunch. The visitors in the white with blue numbers. They'll be going from left to right on your screen. Cuba in the red with white numbers and the blue trim on the top, going from right to left. It is a massive clash in Group B in League A, and it is underway here from Santiago. Cuba and Nicaragua meeting for the 17th time in their respective national teams' history. We welcome you into the Estadio Antonio Maceo. Sam Goldfarb bringing you all of the action tonight from Santiago, on the opposite end of the island as the capital city of Cuba, Havana. An intimate atmosphere sets the stage for this midday clash. Quijano is breaking forward, and he has won Nicaragua the match's first corner. There is your look at Josue Quijano, the 33-year-old. 95 caps now at the international level with Nicaragua. Of course, making his trade at the Giants' Real Estelí. It will be Abner Acuna, the Managua man, to take this outswinger. Near post, bashed goalward, and no trouble in the end for the 21-year-old Miguel Rodriguez between the sticks. It's a Nicaragua side that we've mentioned has finally completed its conquest and reached League A of the Nations League. It technically would have won promotion after the 22-23 slate, but there was an issue with an ineligible player, which not only cost them their promotion, but their spot in the 2023 Gold Cup. Last year, no such mistakes. Won 5 of 6 matches, conceded just once en route to a dominant performance in League B. And it finds itself in the promised land of the Nations League in the top division. Onel Hernandez lost out briefly. Will stay with Cuba on this throw. Reyes. On the other side of things, despite the veteran experience and the consistent legacy of winning in the Nations League from Nicaragua, for Cuba it has been slightly more turbulent despite spending more time in League A of the Nations League. Unieles Castillo taking over last year and leading them through a slightly rocky campaign last year, one at which they stayed up but managed just one goal in the entire competition. They are a very gritty side, tough to break down, and despite all of the personnel turnover between last year and this year, they're still filled with young talent that they have pulled both throughout divisions abroad and, of course, the Cuban top division as well. There's one of the young talents in Carol Perez, and he escorts out of play for a goal kick. There was the goalie, Ismael Morgado, 21 years of age. His second start, just his third international cap. The mainstay between the sticks for Cuba today. And Raiko Rosarina is not in the lineup today. Here's Reyes. It's brought down to the pitch around midfield, and first proper set piece for the hosts. Well, he's creative, the young 20-year-old in the Inter Miami youth ranks. Just tugged on in the end. Not much in it. Espino. And this is Daniel Diaz, the 22-year-olds. Calvo, room to cross, it's low. It ran across Reyes' body and is still loose. But a major chance goes begging for Cuba early. Still not lost yet, Diaz. And trickling wide of the far post. Early pressure on Miguel Rodriguez's goal, though. Some early action for the 21-year-olds. Great build here. Diaz trying from afar and ultimately can't pick out the far corner, but Michael Reyes was inches from tapping in an early opener for Los Leones del Caribe. Here is Reyes again. It's a clever layoff to Diaz. Cross is charged away, only as far as Dairon Reyes. Finally out for a goal kick. Good early signs from a Cuba side that has battled goal-scoring issues in the past. Well, for all the woes going forward, we mentioned the solidity for Cuba. A team that earned a very hard-fought draw, as there's some extracurriculars between Espino and a Nicaragua man, Jason Coronel. All in all, some early tensions. Not much in it, though. But for Cuba, they battled a Jamaica side loaded with Premier League talent and top-tier talent across the board to a scoreless draw in Jamaica on Friday night. That is a side with Michail Antonio and many other standout players that play on your televisions every week. And despite having north of 70% of the ball, they were unable to break down an obdurate Cuban back line, despite a team that only returned 8 key players from last year's Nations League campaign. They're charging forward here through Hernandez. Some room to cross as well. Goes towards the back post. Diaz got his head to it, but not much more. Well, there is your look at Miguel Rodriguez, who's been involved early here. It's a simple flick on that just falls to him. The man born in Ocotal, Nicaragua, makes his trade for Finnish top flight side SJK. His 12th appearance between the sticks has become the regular for Nicaragua. Barrera, the longtime captain for this Nicaraguan side. If you're just joining us, just inside 10 minutes from Santiago, Cuba, at the Estadio Antonio Maceo. No score between Cuba and Nicaragua, the 17th all-time meeting between these two squads. Cuba winning a friendly back in March in 1-0 fashion. Michael Reyes was the man who scored the winner in that one. Molskred crosses to the back post, and Quijano running out of real estate on the near flank. Delgado is unable to field that. When you look at the contrast of these two squads, it is relatively stark. For Cuba, a team that played with a squad with an average age that was just north of 24 on Friday night. It's only gotten younger due to necessary changes in the wake of Junior Perez's late red card last week. Nicaragua's filled with veterans, one of those Acuna blasting that far over the goal. The Nicaragua side that is loaded with talent in its mid-20s as well as established veterans like Barrera and Quijano. One of those Abner Acuna at 27 years of age, just floating that over the goalposts. This is a Nicaraguan team that's been together for quite some time, and many of the same personnel play in major tournaments. Marco Antonio Figueroa slowly deciding and figuring out his best 11 since taking over La Azul y Blanco in the early stages of 2022. It has been accompanied by a gradual resurgence of Nicaraguan football in the regional ranks. Unielis Castillo is hoping to accomplish the same for Cuba, a side that has plummeted in the FIFA World Rankings since peaking in the 40s in 2006. There's Dairon Reyes, one of the many young talents that has Cuban fans hopeful. Not enough contact for the referee's liking. Molskred. And escorted wide to Quijano. One of many members of the Real Esteli complement of players on this Nicaraguan squad. Esteli and Dirianhen populate the bulk of this side, the two biggest clubs in the Nicaraguan Liga Primera. Diaz keeps this in play and awaits reinforcements. Just ran into a thicket of white shirts. The fans less than thrilled by the lack of a whistle. Delgado. Outside of that Michael Reyes cutback that just evaded his left boot, chances have not presented themselves just yet for either side, although Cuba has opted to be far more of the aggressor today, which is slightly surprising when you look at the possession numbers from both teams' respective matches. Here's Hernandez, one of the established wingers on this Cuban side. And he wins his side its first corner in crafty fashion. Some early promise from the longtime Premier League and Championship man. You see him darting on this near flank. Tries for the trickery, and Quijano was right in the midst of it. It does yield Cuba its first corner, though. And Hernandez will have a chance to take this within swing. It's hooking towards the back post. Flicked along and stabbed away with relative aplomb. Finding the boots of Matthias Molskred. Coronel. Barrera, man who has played 19 seasons across Latin America, be it in Nicaragua, elsewhere in Central America, or even in the South American continent, has played football at the highest levels in Concacaf and CONMEBOL. This is one back, only temporarily, and whistle sounds against Cuba anyways. Juan Luis Perez is going to vacate this. It will be Abner Acuna to take. An involved presence early on out of the wing-back role for Nicaragua. Team expected to deploy a 5-back for the second consecutive match today. Arcing towards the near post. It's loose, and the whistle sounds. Too much contact into Ismael Morgado. Christian Reyes the culprit in the end. It's not a bad delivery here. It's a bit tight on Morgado, who wastes no time coming out to claim. Just clatters right into Reyes. And most of the time that's always going to go against the attacker, as it does here. I'm sure he's pleasantly surprised by the relatively calm nature of things for him early on. Nicaragua still trying to establish a foothold. It has been Cuba that has been the far more aggressive of the two sides in possession. And given results, maybe they feel that this is a must-win in terms of their potential quarterfinal hopes. Although scoring a goal would be the first step of that. Espino. Hernandez, a longtime Norwich City man. Espino's in space. Dragged it too close to the near post, missing comfortably wide. The Comunicaciones man who makes his trade in Guatemala. Well, the idea is clear. No one closes him down, and he does not contact it remotely sweetly enough. Here's Rodriguez, and lost his footing on the far side. For Cuba, despite the youth, it is a defense that has performed well throughout its Nations League history, with the exception, of course, of that 1920 campaign, which saw them relegated to League B. Now, when you consider that, they're loaded up with the United States and Canada in that group, so it would have always been difficult. But since then, the defense incredibly sound, and it is single-handedly what kept them in League A in the last campaign in 23-24. Team that kept a clean sheet in each of its first 3 group matches last year. And that effectively allowed them to take the 5 points necessary to solidify themselves in the league for an additional year. The last game, of course, met with a 4-0 drubbing at the hands of Honduras, but they had a chance, a distant one though, to qualify for the quarterfinals if that final day results went a bit better. The switch of the play to Hernandez. It's cleared only as far as Delgado. An inviting cross towards Reyes. Nicaragua comfortably navigating out of danger. One back though. "20 minutes gone here from the Estadio Antonio Maceo. Still no score between Cuba and Nicaragua. A pair of sides looking to potentially etch their names one step closer to the Nations League quarterfinals. The second of 4 match days in Group B. A clever half turn from Acuna, who has spent the bulk of his day hovering around the final third. Quijano. Comes loose to Onel Hernandez, who has slowly grown into this match as the 20 minutes has unfolded. Barrera. Coronel. Two of them anchoring that dual midfielder role. It's a 3-back for Nicaragua today. A pair of wing-backs in the forms of what appear to be Perez and Quijano. Moldskred. This is Marvin Fletes. Comes for Coronel. Quijano crossing to the back stick. Was a ball that didn't quite have the mustard necessary, and a foul against Diaz, the first man in the book. 50-50 challenge here, and he doesn't pull out remotely in time. Catches him with the side of his leg and penalized as a result. The first man for either side to receive a booking from the referee tonight. Well, the 22-year-old Diaz currently making his trade in Costa Rica's top flight. On his 15th cap today. Has shown some early promise. That is not one that will live on the highlight reel, though. And it does set up Nicaragua in a pretty appetizing position for this set piece. Still looking to carve out its first proper opportunity of this match. We have seen almost none of number 9 in white in Jaime Moreno, who's been left on an island. We've seen a lot of that man, though, Abner Acuna, the veteran of Managua, who has spent the entirety of his career in the Liga Primera in Nicaragua, one of the better divisions in North and Central America. Tries to take it short. It's right into the wall. And space to counter now. Hernandez didn't quite ping loose for Reyes in time. Midway through this first half, chances at a premium, and both sides know the importance of getting a result today. For Nicaragua, a draw just about puts them in a very comfortable position in terms of, at a bare minimum, solidifying their spot in next year's League A. Although with the way they started, you'd figure the goal would be a little beyond that, as that is pinged out for a Nicaraguan corner, a careless giveaway by Cuba. It's Abner Acuna to take, and he takes it short. Back for Acuna again. Coronel, back post, narrowly evading the man on the far side. It was Christian Reyes once again crashing at that back post. Coronel. Here is a rare touch of the ball from Barrera. Moldskred, a longtime Norwegian talent. And Quijano charging it off the legs of Delgado for another corner. Promising build here. Delgado puts himself in a position to close that down and may have paid the price for it on the pain front. 21-year-old is still a bit slow to get back to his feet. Seems content to continue. One of many Cuban players making his trade in Nicaragua, plays for Jalapa in the Liga Primera. Acuna to take this without swing. And it may have curled out at the time of delivery. Well, a hydration break just beyond the midway point of this first half. A first 25 minutes and change that lacked any real semblance of clear-cut opportunities. Cuba perhaps the most promising spell of possession early on. The last 5-10 minutes or so, though, it has been Nicaragua gradually growing into this match. Nothing to separate these two sides is about the most apt way to describe it, because both defenses have reigned supreme in the early stages of this one. It is an imperative clash, one which Cuba is hoping replicates their late 1-0 victory at Nicaragua in late March. Michael Reyes scoring the winner in that contest. And Unielis Castillo is still looking to urge his lads forward. A man who took over this Cuban national team back in 2023 after they failed to receive a single point in the 2023 Gold Cup. And he's been tasked with elevating them back to the heights that saw them hit the 40s in the FIFA World Rankings in 2006. On the other side, Marco Antonio Figueroa, someone who also has provided new life and new hope into the Nicaraguan national team. Again, would have had them in the 2023 Gold Cup had it not been for the disqualification due to playing an ineligible player in the 2022-23 Nations League. But someone with over 20 years of coaching experience throughout Mexico and Chile, and now looking to translate that to the international level. In the Nations League, Nicaragua has been quite successful under his tutelage, unbeaten in their first 14 matches, dating back to the start of the 22-23 campaign. For Cuba, their tenure has been met with more ups and downs, although Unielis Castillo has overseen a period of promise, keeping them up in what was a relatively tough group last year in the Nations League. Well, the team's back on the pitch as we rapidly approach the half-hour mark. The question is, will either side find a way to unlock their opposing defenses before the break? So solidity at the back has been the name of the game for both sides, and fitting given both have kept clean sheets in their first Nations League matches entering today. Next, Ali Rodriguez, and one back by Carol Espino. Chopped outside the reach of Diaz. Delgado dropped to the deck, and Barrera is somewhat exasperated by the whistle. There is Nicaragua's all-time leading goal scorer. It's a slight little shove. Perhaps Delgado makes a meal of it. He won't care, though. If you're just joining us, we say hello and welcome here from Santiago, Cuba at the Estadio Antonio Maceo, an intimate 5,000-seat venue on the opposite end of the Cuban island as the capital, Havana. Interestingly enough, not opting to play their matches at the 30,000-seat venue there. A quick break forward. Hernandez can't quite latch on to the end of it. It was a slightly overcooked ball from Dairon Reyes. There are some signs of life, though, from this faltering Cuban attack. Hernandez is onside here, and he may have reacted slightly late to the ball from Reyes, and that's why he's unable to keep it in play. He's a couple footsteps late. Barrera, in his 15th year as an established international player for this Nicaraguan side. for so many years, he's been the talisman that has run the show for La Azul y Blanco. A clever turn from Delgado. And options aplenty going forward. Perez. Enticing cross towards Reyes. Smashed out of danger. And it fell to the feet of Nextali Rodriguez. It's won back by Perez. Only briefly. Rodriguez. Just beyond the reach of Jaime Moreno. There is the Costa Rican native Nextali Rodriguez, man who's spent the bulk of his career in the Costa Rican Liga FPD. Now already, perhaps changes being readied. Appears there is a man for Nicaragua getting set to enter. And that will be made now. So Abner Acuna, who enjoyed a promising start, is forced into an early exit. It's Harold Medina who replaces him. This is an attack-minded swap. One of many young, dynamic players that come off the bench for this Nicaragua side. And Medina called in action very early. The Real Esteli player who's just 22 years of age and has been impressive since ascending through the youth ranks at the Nicaraguan Giants. See how he impacts things for a Nicaraguan side that lacked that punch going forward. It's clear that Marco Antonio Figueroa didn't have a lot of patience for the ongoing state of things. Coronel darted ahead towards Moreno, and the flag stays down. Lays it off, and read comfortably by Orlando Calvo. As they'll come back to that earlier challenge. It appears another Cuban man will enter the book, and that he will. Second booking of the day for Cuba. And it's just another one of these 50-50 tackles. This time, Karol Perez is the man booked, the 19-year-old. One of many players tipped to lead this defense, with Junior Perez out on the red card suspension. Was sent off 44 minutes into that Jamaica match. And despite his absence, and despite an overwhelming bout of possession and chances from the Reggae boys, Cuba managed to salvage a point away from home, which, given the personnel, be it Bobby De Cordova-Reed or Mikel Antonio or otherwise, it's a monumental result for Cuba to at least keep themselves afloat in this group. Here's the drive from afar. And there was too much hand fighting in the penalty area anyways for the referee's liking. Relatively calm half for Ismael Morgado. First ever Nations League start, his first competitive start. The only other one, as previously mentioned, against Nicaragua in a friendly. So this is by far the biggest stage at which he has started a match. And somewhat surprising, Raiko Rosarino was terrific on the back of consecutive clean sheets. You get your look at that tackle on Perez, a beat late, but Unielis Castillo opting to make the change, and we have yet to get a final return on Morgado's performance yet. Has yet to properly be tested. Reyes. And here's the first proper touch from Harold Medina, the dynamic 22-year-old midfielder from Real Esteli. Moldskred. One back by Espino. And there's some room for Hernandez on the far side. Not quite able to connect with his standout winger. It's been a match played between the 18s. A lot of incidental contact as a result. This time the challenge a bit overzealous from Yasniel Matos, who has seen his touches limited in this first half. Hernandez has probably been the most involved going forward for Cuba so far. Delgado. There's Alejandro Delgado, 21 years of age, starting at left back for the second consecutive match for Los Leones del Caribe. Matos is unable to twist between two white shirts, but a set piece does result. The Canadian referees had a busy match to attend to so far. Has not been hesitant about blowing his whistle, although the yellow cards have been consistent, and that was a late challenge from Juan Barrera. Question becomes, can Cuba break its prolonged Nations League drought via set piece? The way this match has been played, you'd fancy a set piece to change the run of proceedings. It is Dairon Reyes as the lone man in the vicinity, someone who makes his trade for Inter Miami too. One of the many young, early 20-somethings in the squad. A cross to the back post, it's an inviting one. Still not properly dealt with, Espino! And there's a point to the spot. Cuba, a late first half penalty. And it appears a handball may have done the trick. Well, Nicaragua paying the price for not properly dealing with this. The header comes down towards Diaz, and then the question becomes where the contact lies. It is the late challenge in the end on Dariel Marejon, which yields Cuba a crucial penalty. And it appears Jason Coronel may have been the culprit that conceded it. Huge moment for the young Miguel Rodriguez, who suddenly finds himself stared down from 12 yards. It will be Carol Espino to take. The 22-year-old who has been an involved presence in the build-up today. A man who makes his trade for Comunicaciones in Guatemala. Recently recovering from an ACL tear which cost him last year's Nations League. But a very experienced Cuban international at a very young age. It will be Espino against Rodriguez. A pivotal moment for Cuba as it looks to break a near 400-minute goal drought. Espino buries it, and Cuba takes the lead 42 minutes in. Crucial for Los Leones del Caribe, and clinical from Carol Espino. It was a decent guess from Rodriguez, but doesn't fully commit. Meanwhile, Espino does, nestling it in the bottom left. And just like that, it's 1-0. The 22-year-old whose persistence has allowed him to work his way back from a late 2023 ACL injury. Now serenaded by the Cuban faithful at home. The first goal of Nations League play for Cuba, and an early lead at home against Nicaragua. Just a second international goal from Carol Espino, the first of which came against Guadeloupe in the 22-23 Nations League. And a goal drought that eclipsed 380 minutes in Nations League play comes to a close for Los Leones del Caribe. Just what the doctor ordered for Cuba. Now Nicaragua has to charge forward. His cross was loose and finally pounced upon by Morgado. Quijano was beckoning. Just loses his foot race by half a footstep and then tries to sell the contact. On the stroke of halftime, a much needed lead for Cuba. Just their second ever goal in League A play. Their third campaign in the Nations League's top division. They've already matched their tally from a season ago. Hernandez, a man with over 180 appearances with Norwich City. And Matos looking to usher it along. The question becomes, how will Nicaragua respond? A side playing just its second ever match in League A, but one that is unbeaten in its previous 14 Nations League contests. A rare bout of adversity for them to face after conceding just once in the entirety of their League B slate last year. It's been a first half where they've lacked final third inspiration. That will need to change if they are to salvage anything here. It's not been Cuba's most dominant first half by any stretch, but taking advantage of the spot kick, and a side that has created the slightly better of the chances. This falls for Matos, who outwits Medina well. Into the final minute of the initial 45. And as things stand, Cuba the far happier of the two entities. There's the goal scorer, Espino. Links well with Michael Reyes. Decent ball forward into the path of Matos. Finds the feet of Reyes. Didn't quite wrap his foot around it well enough. But the best spell of interplay so far from Cuba. Three minutes of added time separate us from intermission. The 42nd minute, Carol Espino penalty making the difference. This is Dairon Reyes. A clever ball forward, and Hernandez was just beyond the last defender. The offside flag is raised. Well, the wind is now in Cuba's sails. You feel it. Quick breaks forward. Quicker twitch reflexes from the wingers as well. And Hernandez may have been a step or two offside on the pass. It's one back, though, by Diaz. A switch of the play for Hernandez. Dangerous ball. Diaz unable to run it down and commits the foul at the end of it. You do see new energy, though, exuding throughout this Cuban side. Goals are contagious. Even if they're penalties at a period where things feel a little uninspired and stale going forward. The breakthrough has prompted new ideas for the hosts. Delgado charged out of play. In the first half, that still leaves plenty up for intrigue as things stand. A surprisingly stale Nicaraguan performance going forward. There was some frustration in the French Guiana match. Of course, it took them till stoppage time to win it. It was Wiedmer Talavera who made the difference in the 95th minute. but there were far more clear-cut chances created by Nicaragua throughout the 90 minutes than we've seen here today. They've been on the back foot and very little inspiration in the final third, although this is certainly a bit of it. The flag is raised. Barrera was momentarily through on goal. It appears he's at least multiple steps off. Was clever though. He caught the back line napping. Closing stages of this first half. Quijano. This is the substitute Medina. Entered early in the match. And it comes to Hernandez. One final foray forward for Cuba. Espino, the goal scorer. Matos. Delgado with space. And the halftime whistle sounds in the process. So no chance to build on that Carol Espino opener. But Cuba leading at halftime. A goal drought of north of 380 minutes in Nations League play comes to a close. Carol Espino's spot kick in the 42nd minute making the difference between the two sides. A first half in which chances were at a premium, but Cuba leading Nicaragua in this crucial clash in Group B. Stick with us. Hear from our coverage from Santiago. We'll come back with some halftime stats and highlights. We welcome you back from the Estadio Antonio Maceo. A pair of changes being made for Nicaragua here as they chase this match. The first of which comes in midfield. It is Mario. It is two changes in midfield, to be precise. Oscar Acevedo, the experienced Nicaraguan wingback, replacing Jason Coronel on that far side, as they look to spark something going forward here. In addition, the last game's hero, Vidman Talavera, the 21-year-old product of Real Esteli, who scored the 95th minute winner at French Guiana, is into the action as well. Back underway here from Santiago. Cuba looking to see out a crucial victory in League A. Nicaragua looking to keep its 14th match Nations League unbeaten run intact. Back underway. The question becomes, who will garner the upper hand here? There's already some early tempers flaring, and it appears the new man Acevedo involved in that, as is the captain Juan Barrera, just shoving Diaz to the deck. Well, the Canadian referee had very little to manage in the early stages of that first half. Has had a couple yellows to worry about, though. Talavera, you see on your screen, in for Nexteli Rodriguez in a very attack-minded swap. And Coronel vacating for Acevedo. The referee had his yellow card out. It's unclear who he's going to show it to at this current moment. Juan Barrera was at the center of that altercation. It appears as of now, he may have escaped without a booking. Here is the first touch by Acevedo, the prime veteran of Real Esteli. Barrera is officially booked for his troubles. And now Morejon, the man who won the penalty, is clattered to the deck. And suddenly it's begun to become a slightly more physical affair. Well, the changes for Nicaragua are extremely attack-minded. As you get another look at this challenge, yeah, there is no hesitation in that. Full drop of the shoulder and everything. Now the referee is trying to settle this all down. An onslaught of dissent from both sides here in Cuba. And we're finally good to get resumed. For Nicaragua, Talavera in for Rodriguez, a more defensive-minded midfielder, replaced by a man who is far more forward-thinking and a natural winger. And then Acevedo is a fullback wingback in place of Coronel, who at the club level, at least with Dirianhen, thrives in more of a holding midfield role. So it is clear Nicaragua has intentions of chasing this, and they are not waiting to do so, nor should they, given the relative lack of inspiration throughout that first half. Here is Acevedo, a dangerous cross. It is outside the reach of Jaime Moreno, a number 9 who was left on an island for large spells of that first half. That's someone who is already top 10 in Nicaraguan national team history in goals with 12. Second, in fact, only behind Juan Barrera. Juan Luis Perez anchored that back line. It was a Nicaraguan back line that didn't crack until the penalty shout. The late challenge from Coronel is what ultimately cost them the opener. And they find themselves chasing the match now. Medina was the man booked for that last challenge. The first two men to enter the book for Nicaragua after a clean first half. Well, if you're just rejoining us, we welcome you in from the Estadio Antonio Maceo. An intimate atmosphere on a matinee kickoff, a 4 p.m. kickoff local time from Cuba. On the opposite end of the island from the capital city of Havana. As things stand, a 1-0 advantage for Cuba as they push on again here. And it's just lost out of play for what appears to be a Cuban corner, and that it is. Adventurous run here from the left back Delgado, who's been very involved today. It's a late challenge from Fletes, an accurate one, but it's one that takes it out for a set piece. It was a makeshift corner, effectively, that yielded the penalty that Espino buried in the 42nd. The only thing that separates the two sides. Reyes is outswinger, it falls, Morajon got his dome to it, and the chance still not lost yet. Keeper off his line, Diaz crosses, and nobody waiting at the back stick. The cross lacked the accuracy required. And now Rodriguez is a bit slow to get up after that challenge. Well, you see him lose his footing, and Diaz just tries to play this back across. Fortunate for Nicaragua that the cross takes it out of play momentarily. And now it appears Rodriguez is good to continue. As now Moldskred is brought down to the deck and the yellow is shown. Suddenly it's all beginning to pop off here in Cuba. This time Espino, the goal scorer, the culprit. Just kicks out at him, misses the ball, textbook yellow. Not much more in it. Well, he's the man that opened the scoring. 22 years of age, but a wealth of experience at the club and international level. Making his trade in Guatemala with Giants Comunicaciones. It's part of a larger movement of the top Cuban players to play abroad, especially in Nicaragua and Costa Rica. There are many Cuban players who play in the Nicaraguan Liga Primera and are teammates of some of the Nicaraguan players in the club ranks. Here's Acevedo. Dangerous ball. Reyes read it momentarily. Moldskred didn't quite contact it well enough. But Nicaragua starting to twist the screws on the break. The first proper save required of the 21-year-old Ismael Morgado. Although the deflection from Morajon took the steam out of it. Either way, some promise from the visitors as they chase this. And now numbers forward for La Azul y Blanco. Acevedo surging down the near side, cuts it across, and Moldskred didn't hit it sweetly enough. It may have popped up on him, and that's what may have saved Cuba the equalizer. A great ball in, and Moldskred doesn't contact it cleanly. And it winds up being a routine save from Morgado from point-blank range. But what a chance that was from the Norwegian Nicaraguan. Reyes. Two big chances floating Moldskred's way. A man who's made the bulk of his trade in the Norwegian second tier. And Reyes unable to walk the tightrope on this near side. But what a stretch it is for Nicaragua. Marco Antonio Figueroa's side beginning to find its footing. Orlando Calvo to take this throw. And it stays in along the byline. Finally trickles out of play for a goal kick. Well, there is life from Nicaragua. A side that was known for its goal-scoring prowess in League B. in fact, outscored opponents in last year's Nations League by a 17-1 scoreline. Conceded just once and kept 5 clean sheets in the entirety of last year's campaign. A deflected cross and one that is claimed routinely by Morgado. This was a Nicaraguan side, though, that obliterated opposing defenses at that level. It was a slightly more frustrating affair at French Guiana on Friday night. It took him to the 95th minute until Weidman Talavera broke through. But that he did. Now Cuba breaking the other way. Delgado was brought down, and a set piece results. Yellow shown as well. The late challenge from Quijano drawing the referee's ire. Suddenly, it's become a card fest. He's a step late here, and he knows what he's doing. A late challenge. Fortunate a center back is in the vicinity here. It could have been Dogzo. Just clips at the heels. A textbook cynical yellow card. And Cuba with a chance to try and conjure something dangerous in the box. Slowly becoming a more end-to-end battle here in Santiago. It is Matos and Dairon Reyes in the vicinity. Cuba now making a change. The young forward Raydal Sanchez in the match. The first substitution of the night for Los Leones del Caribe. It is the 19-year-old who's made his trade in the Spanish lower leagues. Low cross, stabbed away by the wall. It is Diaz who vacates. That's a relatively like-for-like change. There was promise from Daniel Diaz in that first half, but saw his influence blunted as the opening 45 minutes wore on. And now falls on the 19-year-old Sanchez to make a difference. A man who made his international debut a year ago at just 18 years of age. Here's the foray forward from Cuba. Laid off, Dairon Reyes. And the effort rolling comfortably into the waiting arms of Rodriguez. Already more half chances in this half than we saw in the first. It's beginning to liven up here at the Estadio Antonio Maceo, between a pair of clubs resurgent under their new managers. Dinked forward, Moldskred was through, just unable to run onto it in time. Number 17 in the white and blue of Nicaragua is slowly seeing more opportunities fall his way. This one slightly overcooked. But had he been able to get a boot on that, it would have proven quite dangerous. From afar now, nearly tested Morgado. And it was not a bad effort by any means from Talavera. Well, he's the hero from Friday night. This is from considerably further out than his winner was last week. He didn't miss it by much. It appeared Morgado may have had it covered anyway, though. Dinked over the top. Hernandez. Delgado, spaced across. Charged away by Acevedo and out harmlessly for a corner. The Cuban counter has proven dangerous. This underlapping run from Delgado nearly presenting problems. Acevedo, though, positioning himself well. Now Carol Espino, the goal scorer, is slow to get up. The last sight you want to see if you're a Cuban supporter. A mainstay in the international 11 for quite some time now, despite his relatively young age. Already north of 20 international caps with Los Leones del Caribe. Appears they're tending to the back of his leg at the moment. He's calling off the stretcher, so he seems content to continue. And back to his feet. He's been an Iron Man in the center of the park for both club and country for quite some time. It's hard to believe he is as young as he's listed, given how much maturity he plays with. Stepped up and took the penalty with relative aplomb. No questions where he was going to put it. Cuba will make a change. It is Espino who does exit, so his day actually comes to a conclusion. And exits to deserved applause. It's a defensive-minded one. Leandro Mena, the center back, replacing him. One of the many young additions to this Cuban side between last Nations League and this one. The 19-year-old out of Santiago who makes his trade with the club that plays on this home ground, Santiago de Cuba, in the Campeonato Nacional de Cuba. So after an hour, Espino vacates. And his goal is what makes the difference. We have hit the hour mark here in Santiago. A match in which we saw a very low caliber of chance in the first half. The lone goal scored on a penalty by the man who just exited in Espino. The second half has presented us with a number of more enticing half chances. Nicaragua chasing the match, looking to extend its 14-match Nations League unbeaten run. Here's Moldskred. He's been at the center of everything and nearly got on the end of the return ball. Cross was charged away by the first defender. It's a Nicaraguan side that has not been shut out since the finale of Group B in 23-24. They had already clinched safe passage and promotion to League A prior to that. So in competitive fixtures, they are rarely silenced going forward. Meanwhile, it is a Cuba side that under Unielis Castillo has turned into a clean sheet machine. Has kept 4 in 5 Nations League matches under his tutelage. In line to do so once again here. It would be Morgado's second clean sheet in the calendar year against Nicaragua. Progressive run forward here. And the switch of the play just off kilter. It's won back by Acevedo. Now charged ahead, and Michael Reyes was a matter of footsteps offside. Not shy about having an animated discussion with our official today, who's become a central player in this. It's not that close. He is multiple steps offside by the time the ball comes. Likely was a couple footsteps beyond the last defender at the time of delivery. A frustrating day for both nines. Moreno and Reyes, very little coming across their plates. Flicked on here. And a quick turn from Medina. An excellent defensive shift for Michael Reyes. Well, he's provided new life to Nicaragua. Oscar Acevedo. Some promising bursts forward down that left flank, which of course, is his natural position with club. Last year was a goal-producing machine, had goal contributions in each of the first 3 Nations League contests. Someone who at Estadio has also been dangerous as well. Moldskred. And now the play is switched. Toward Talavera. Well, there is your look at last match's hero, Vidman Talavera, a youngster, just 21 years old, one of many Estadio Academy products that have thrived in the professional ranks. That time just a frustration after having his shirt pulled. It does yield Nicaragua an inviting corner kick or set piece position. And it will be Harold Medina, the fellow youngster at Estadio, to take. Was subbed on early in the first half, comfortably before halftime. It arcs towards the heart of the area. Hoofed clear, only as far as Talavera, and finally run loose. A loose challenge from Talavera in the end. It may earn him a booking. Unielis Castillo is beside himself, clearly expecting some sort of card to be shown. Well, here's another look at the challenge. It was certainly late, and there was some shoving to the face area. And remember, any hands to the face is considered red card worthy by many officials. Talavera, as things stand, has gotten off scot-free. And that explains why Unielis Castillo is so livid on the touchline. The former manager of the Cuban U20 side who took over last year is pleading with the official for some sort of discipline. And now it seems he's making his way to Vidman Talavera. Will he receive his marching orders? Or will he get off with a mere talking to? It appears the latter. Nicaragua perhaps fortunate to still be with 11 men. And Vidman Talavera is off scot-free for now. May have just gotten a measure of payback in moments ago. And now it's all popping off. Yellow shown for the Nicaragua challenge. Well, the tension is palpable here. Implications are clear as well. Nicaragua, a lengthy unbeaten run in the Nations League on the line. Cuba is looking for a crucial 3 points, which would all but guarantee its safety in League A through 2 match days. And here's your look at the challenge. It is late, it is likely unwarranted, and definitely deserving of the yellow it was assessed. And it is Christian Reyes who is booked. A third Nicaraguan to enter the book today. And that sets up Tyrone Reyes on this set piece. The Inter Miami man who has progressed through the youth ranks there. And now the head coach of Nicaragua, Marco Antonio Figueroa, enters the book. The Cuban fans appreciate that decision. It's been a tense figure on the sidelines today. Both coaches incredibly animated here in a fixture in which everyone understands the sheer weight. Reyes awaits the referee's signal. Taken towards the back post. It was headed dangerously across the face of goal and mercifully missing. What a chance it was for Michael Reyes. You see the float on this. It's a great delivery from Dairon Reyes. And Michael trying to pick out the far corner. He did not miss it by much. Cuba a matter of feet from 2-0. And as we hit the 70-minute mark, it feels the pendulum could swing either way. What a chance it was for Michael Reyes. Got himself in a lovely position. Now won back by Reyes. And releasing the run forward of Matos, who was a matter of footsteps away from catching up to that. Much needed intervention from Reyes. Christian Reyes, that was. We welcome you into our coverage of Concacaf Nations League in League A if you're just joining us. Beyond the 70-minute mark, it is still Carol Espino's 42nd minute penalty which makes the difference. Although there have been opportunities both ways to produce goals. Michael Reyes missing moments ago from a terrific set-piece delivery by Dairon. And earlier, a number of chances falling Matthias Molskred's way that just went begging. There's been a second half of near misses for both sides so far. Here's the ball forward to Medina and ushering it along to the increasingly controversial figure that is Talavera. And now it comes loose. Numbers on the break for Cuba. Hernandez outwitting a number of defenders. And finally shrugged off it by Christian Reyes. Moldskred charging it towards the back stick. Into the path of Jaime Moreno. It's punched away, and the whistle sounding against the Nicaraguan forward. Ismael Morgado is prone on the pitch after that challenge, putting his body on the line and potentially saving his side from a devastating equalizer. It was the first bout of opportunity for Jaime Moreno this match, and he was not far from getting on the end of this. It appears he may have even won the foot race, but Morgado getting his gloves to it, and he was clattered into by the forward, and the benefit of the doubt goes the goalkeeper's way. And still being tended to on this far side. Well, our lead officials become a clear player, the Canadian referee. A number of yellow cards procured to both sides of the pitch, including a yellow card to Marco Antonio Figueroa for his comments on the near side. The tension has become apparent here in the second half. Of course, Nicaragua, a side that is in its first foray in League A action. For Cuba, it is all about ensuring it does not go back down to League B, where it spent the 22-23 campaign. It's a packed crowd, 5,000 strong, here at the Estadio Antonio Maceo in Santiago, Cuba. A venue built in the 1900s and renovated in 2018 to add a grass playing surface. It houses Santiago de Cuba in the Cuban Campeonato Nacional, a Cuban top flight. It is a league where many of the young players on this Cuban side come from, although as many Cuban players mature, they tend to venture towards the Central American footballing ranks. And while in Nicaragua, many of their players from their domestic league, although some venturing from Costa Rica and elsewhere, there is a contingent of Costa Rican-born Nicaraguan players who have played key roles for this side. Ismael Morgado seems no worse for wear after the 50-50 coming together with Jaime Moreno. And we seem set to get underway as the final quarter of an hour hits. It all still hangs in the balance. The question becomes, can Cuba snatch another elusive victory and produce a 5th clean sheet in 6 Nations League matches dating back to the start of last year? Unielis Castillo has built an ironclad defense, one that has churned out results. Here's the ball through to Reyes, through on goal, an excellent stop, flying to his left by Miguel Rodriguez. And Michael Reyes slowly starting to see more chances float across his docket. Medina. It is a Nicaraguan side that has enjoyed a sensational bout of form. It won its first 2 World Cup qualifying matches in relatively dominant fashion, outscoring its last 3 opponents by a 9-1 scoreline. And for a Nicaraguan side that has never qualified for the World Cup and rarely finds itself in the Gold Cup, that represents a huge step. For Cuba, it's a side that has been frequent features in the Gold Cup and continental competitions, but a side that has not qualified for the World Cup since its run to the quarterfinals in 1938. Pair of sides that are trying to surge back into global contention. There's a change made. It is Josue Quijano, already on a yellow and a Tensifer, who vacates. Acevedo. And this is Talavera, who can't quite find his fullback on the return ball. It was Luis Coronel who replaced him, a very attack-minded change. Coronel, one of the top forwards in the Nicaraguan Primera Liga, making his trade at Dirianhen. Led the Clausura in goals last spring. The name of the game is clear. It is equalizer or bust for Nicaragua at this stage. Juan Luis Perez. And here is Moldskred. A second half that has presented him with a number of opportunities. Weaseling his way along the touchline. It was won back comfortably by Mena, and it ultimately goes out for a Nicaraguan corner. Can La Azul y Blanco find a late twist to this narrative? Mena tried to escort this to Delgado, unable to keep it in play. And that sets up Nicaragua in a very enticing position. A rare corner here in the second half. It is Harold Medina, one of the many young talents who have impressed this last year or so with La Azul y Blanco. Already 30-plus goals in the Nicaraguan top flight. It's taken short. And the return ball snuffed out. Potential numbers for Cuba here. It comes free. Michael Reyes can't quite thread it through to Yasniel Matos. A counter that potentially goes begging a bit too fast. And Orlando Calvo has come off worse for wear after that coming together. Calvo still slow to get back to his feet. 25 years of age, one of the many Cuban players making his trade in the Liga FPD of Costa Rica. You see, it's the loose tackle, one that comes across his shin and leaves him prone on the deck. It appears he will try to exit off the pitch on his own power. We are now into the final 10 minutes from Santiago. It all still hangs in the balance. It is Cuba with the 1-0 advantage, making a trio of alterations. Many of which are defensive-minded. Diego Catasus is one of the men entering, as is Michael Camejo, who will replace Dairon Reyes in a relatively like-for-like change. So Reyes' day comes to a close, as does Orlando Calvo's and Yasniel Matos's. Catasus and Camejo entering, as does Elvis Casanova in the like-for-like swap with Orlando Calvo. So 3 relatively like-minded changes for Unielis Castillo, all of whom are relatively young. Catasus, 19 years of age. Casanova at just 18, who made his second international appearance on Friday. It's a long throw. Comes loose to Catasus, man who plays in Serie D in Italy. Casanova's unable to run it down. Perhaps some frustration from Acevedo. He's played a key role for Nicaragua going forward since entering at halftime. Fortunately, though, for La Azul y Blanco, nothing to show for it. Hoofed forward. Moldskred. The final match day of the September window. And this one will come right down to the final whistle. It's one back. Looking through, Hernandez. One of the men brought down, looked like Camejo, fell to the pitch. The 19-year-old out of La Habana, Cuba. Well, there are the changes on your screen. One of the substitutes, Camejo, involved in this altercation. Just the late challenge from the substitute, Luis Coronel. Taken short here and darted across. Appears it's gone out for a Cuban corner. It will be Camejo to take as we rapidly approach the final 5 minutes here from Santiago. The 19-year-old stands over it. Coronel is booked for the last challenge. Charged away and still loose. Chance not lost just yet. Finally cleared out of danger. Long throw here. And finally cleared out of trouble towards Harold Medina. And it has rapidly devolved into a bit of a grudge match. One yellow shown. Now Michael Reyes in a bit of an altercation as well. It appears the new substitute Elvis Casanova, the 18-year-old, has received the booking. Yeah, the late challenge just trods upon Moldskred. Tempers beginning to flare on both sides of the aisle. It is clear that Nicaragua is laden with frustration, Cuba playing with continued ferocity, and neither side likes that state of affairs from their opposition. Final 4 minutes of the 90. It has become a ferocious tussle between these two sides. Medina. And now ushered along to Junior Arteaga, who's entered the fray. Low driver, deflected, and trickling just beyond the far post. Nicaragua continuing to produce chances, and this by no means a bad one. Deflected effort here on the long-range attempt, and it didn't miss by much. A Nicaraguan corner. Curling now to the back post. Still loose, and finally headed just wide. The Cuban fans beginning to feel the tension. This header was by no means bad, and the flick on just couldn't quite stay down. Nearly nodded home by Nicaragua. Jaime Moreno was right in the vicinity. Arteaga. Dirion Henman. Medina. Wrestled back by Camejo only momentarily. And here's Moldskred. Unable to pick out Talavera. When you look at the Nations League table, this match carries obvious implications. Cuba would, for the moment, jump to second in Group B, which would put it in the quarterfinal places. Of course, there are more games to be played in this group on this match day, but it would be a huge promising step for a Cuban side that has frankly struggled to score and get results in this competition beyond draws. For Nicaragua, it would snap the colossal unbeaten run under Marco Antonio Figueroa, and it would also send them back to the drawing board. There is still time to produce some semblance of a result, although Talavera running out of space on that far side. There are two other games in this group tonight. Trinidad hosts French Guiana at 7 Eastern. And then Honduras and Jamaica, potentially the clash of group favorites at the Estadio Nacional Xelata Ulces at 10 Eastern on the nightcap. We've been treated to some terrific matches in League A of the Nations League. This has been one filled with intrigue and half chances, but a second consecutive match littered with frustration for Nicaragua, and one that may not be masked by late dramatics. See the late challenge there from Marvin Fletes. Final minute of the 90. All eyes will be on the fourth official in a matter of seconds. Arteaga. Numbers on the break for Nicaragua. A terrific ball through. Coronel. Flag stays down. Deflected cross, and one with no steam in it. Now numbers on the break for Cuba. Camejo. Michael Reyes. Is there a late dagger for Los Leones? And charged away with relative aplomb. Arteaga. Medina. How many minutes? Progressive ball forward, and one that is charged away. It will be an onslaught from here on out for Cuba to weather. Moldskred crosses to the back post. Coronel. Decent ball, one that is charged away by Perez. And now into the path of Onel Hernandez. Has one man to beat. And Juan Luis Perez recovering very well. Still Hernandez. Runs out of space and out for a goal kick. Waiting word on official added time, although we are 2 minutes into it. Acuna. Can Nicaragua find stoppage time heroics for the second consecutive match? Or will they be shrouded in disappointment at the end of the 90 minutes? Reyes. A loose pass. Camejo, Catasus. More numbers for Cuba. It is 6 minutes of added time. Long range effort. It whistled wide. Had plenty of venom to it. And the Cuban fans appreciate that counter. What a break this was. Audacious attempts. One which was beyond the reach of Rodriguez. It just dropped wide. Nicaragua living to fight another day. But time is of the essence at the moment. Coronel fouled. Free kick. 3 minutes remain of added time. It is Carol Perez, who's already on a yellow, mind you. Clattering into Coronel's back. Sets up Medina and company quite nicely. And it is Harold Medina, the lone man in the vicinity. A man known for his creative expertise. Floated into the heart of the area. It found a head of a Nicaragua player. The header does not stay down. It appeared Moreno was in the vicinity for it. Not a bad delivery by any stretch. It was Fletes who got his dome to it. But unable to do much more than that. Cuba 90 seconds away from a crucial win in Group B. And Ismael Morgado in no rush to launch this one away. May take the yellow for his troubles if he's not careful. Arteaga. Slung wide, Talavera. Latching onto it. Talavera's through and equalizes. Nicaragua level in dramatic fashion. And they may have just salvaged a point away from home. What a bit of interplay. And Nicaragua level. A chip to the back stick. And just like that, the visitors find a lifeline. It is Harold Medina who produces the dramatic late equalizer. And for the second consecutive match, Nicaragua finding a crucial goal in stoppage time. It was Talavera involved in the buildup, linking with his Esteli teammate. And in dramatic fashion, Nicaragua snatch a point away from home. They have salvaged a dramatic draw in Santiago. Cuba a matter of seconds from getting over the line, but dashed at the death. And Harold Medina securing the late equalizer for the visitors. The late efforts rewarded. And despite a frustrating 90 minutes for the visitors, they find the leveler, and suddenly tempers begin to flare again. It was a tense battle, and that tension is now spilling over. It appears this is far from settled after 90 minutes. And it's becoming an ugly scene here in Santiago. Well, the fans will be forced to leave in disappointment. Cuba dropping a crucial 2 points here at home today. Harold Medina snatching the late equalizer. And just like that, it ends 1-1. A fourth international goal for the Esteli man. We will step aside and get a word from some of the key players in this contest. And then when we come back, a look at the full-time highlights. Well, here is your look at the full-time highlights. A match that became very eventful in the second half. Despite a first half with chances at a premium, it ended 1-1 between Cuba and Nicaragua. You see the cutback there for Michael Reyes, who was just unable to put it on target. And then this, eventually yielding a Cuban penalty after a number of half chances both ways. It was a first half where neither team could put much together, and the long-range effort sailing over the bar. Cuba broke through with a penalty in the late stages of the first half. It comes on this interchange, the header down, and then on the clearance, they clatter into Carol Perez, and Dariel Morejon went down. It yielded a point to the penalty spot, and that's where Carol Espino stepped up. The experienced 22-year-old burying it. Guessing the right way was Rodriguez, but didn't guess well enough, and it was a simple nestle into the bottom corner, and an excellent finish from Espino to put Cuba in front. It looked like potentially Cuba would be able to see it out. A team that really has frankly specialized in clean sheets in this competition, and in the second half, they were almost there. There was a number of half chances for Nicaragua. Matthias Moldskred had 3 or 4 that he probably feels he could have buried. This, the most notable of them. It skips up across his boot, and then this effort from afar from Talavera was not far off. From there, the chances continued to materialize for Nicaragua. It also became a very tense affair. Both forwards barking at the referees. This effort from Michael Reyes to potentially double the lead, just skirting wide. And from there, a few more chances to put the match to bed, none of which carried the same really weight to them. Also, Nicaragua squandering opportunities to equalize as well on the other end. And then finally, the equalizer late. A chipped effort from number 10 in white, Harold Medina, who found the back of the net, kissing it off the near post crossbar, and salvaging a dramatic point for Nicaragua here today. It was a match where both teams struggled to create a draw, probably a fair result. It keeps Nicaragua in the quarterfinal places on 4 points. Well, what a 90 minutes it was, and let's get a look at the full-time numbers. You see Nicaragua an advantage in virtually every major statistical category, out shooting Cuba even on shots on goal, and they bossed possession both halves, which was no surprise. But the stat that matters, 1-1. Harold Medina clawing back a late equalizer after brilliant interplay with his Esteli teammate, Weidman Talavera. And just like that, Nicaragua able to secure a result. It takes them into the top 2, atop the table as things stand on 4 points. Meanwhile, Cuba squandering a chance to move atop the group themselves, instead forced to settle for 2 points in as many matches, with a pair of Trinidad and Tobago tussles on the horizon as they look to stay afloat in Group B of League A. Well, that is where it finishes from Santiago, a 1-1 scoreline between Nicaragua and Cuba. A very eventful affair. We thank you for joining us from Santiago. It ends all square.